He came back less and less often after he moved out. Juliana could only see him once a week instead of every day. Corinne Jones said he was busy with work, but she was still unhappy. She rested her chin on the desk in class. Her best friend said firmly, "Your brother is already 25. He must have a girlfriend. It is inconvenient to live at home. If he lives by himself, he can bring a woman home to spend the night." Juliana said she was talking nonsense. "My brother doesn't have a girlfriend. Anyway, she never saw any women every time she went to Simon's place." She didn't believe it at the time until later, when she hid in the apartment on Simon's birthday to give him a surprise, and then she saw him kissing a woman with her own eyes. At that moment, it was no exaggeration to say that the sky was falling and the earth was splitting for her. She knew Simon's door lock password, and he often used that password. She used to go there every weekend, but after that, she never went there again. The car drove to the downstairs of the apartment building, and Juliana carried the thermos upstairs. She didn't know if Simon had seen a doctor, and she didn't know if he had any medicine at home, so she bought some when she passed by the pharmacy. After ringing the doorbell, she waited for a while before the door opened. She first saw a head of chestnut brown curly hair, and then a woman's beautiful face. Juliana was stunned without any defense. It was the actress that night. Although she was not wearing makeup, she was still so beautiful that people could not forget her. She was only wearing a men's shirt, with a wide hem covering her hips, and her legs were bare, without even wearing slippers. The actress held the door with one hand, and looked her up and down with a slightly hostile look, as if she regarded her as some kind of competitor. "Are you looking for Simon? He hasn't woken up yet." After a moment of stiffness, Juliana found her voice again. "I'll bring some ginger soup to my brother." "Well, you are his sister." Everyone around Simon knew that he had a very doted sister. The actress's attitude immediately changed 180 degrees. A trace of shame flashed across her face. She gathered her deliberately lazy and messy hair, pulled up the collar of her shirt, and her tone was gentle and even a little flattering. "Wait a moment, I'll call him." Juliana stood outside the door without moving. "No, you take it in." She handed over the thermos and medicine, put her hands in her windbreaker pockets, turned around and left. "Hey!" The actress looked at her back who's without turning back, knowing that she had done stupidly this time, and offended Simon's sister the first time they met. Just as she was feeling annoyed, Simon came out of the bedroom, his voice still hoarse from the high fever. "Who's here?" "Your sister came to bring you ginger soup, but she didn't come in." Simon's eyes slid across the thermos and medicine bag in her hands, and he paused slightly. She didn't know if it was her illusion, but his tired eyes were slowly cooling down. She was a little at a loss, and Simon had passed by her before she could react, took his coat, opened the door and went out. The elevator was a little slow, or maybe not, but every second seemed so long to Juliana. When the door opened, she went in and just turned around. She saw Simon's figure coming out. She lowered her eyes and looked at Simon's feet as he walked to the elevator door. "Brother." Simon's voice was a little hoarse, probably because of a cold. "Why didn't you call me when you are here?" "I'm afraid to disturb you," Juliana said. "I have to go to the hospital to see my friend." "I'll take you." "No, you should rest more if you are sick. It's just a cold." Simon stepped into the elevator and pressed the first floor below ground. There was some silence in the elevator. Simon tilted his head to look at her. She stood in the corner, her shoulders pressed against the wall, keeping the farthest distance from him. Simon drove the car himself today. On the way to the hospital, Juliana stared out the window in a daze. Simon talked to her, but she didn't hear it until he called again. "Little 9. Ha!" Juliana came back to her senses and realized that they had arrived at the hospital. She opened the car door and got out of the car. She bent down and said to him, "Brother, I'm leaving. Take care of yourself." Simon didn't say anything, and his eyes looked at her with an unclear meaning. Juliana was absent-minded and didn't pay attention to anything. After a pause, Simon said, "Go in." She responded and hurriedly walked into the crowd coming and going in the hospital. Juliana felt like she was a person with a high fever, walking under the warm April sun, but feeling cold from the bones. She knew that there was a woman beside Simon, but knowing it in head is different from seeing it with her own eyes. The former is a chronic and long-lasting dull pain, while the latter is a sharp and stabbing pain that wakes up the dull and tears open the bloody wounds of the paralyzed. She knew clearly that Corinne Jones had deliberately let her go today and let her see it. Why was she so wary of her? When she reached the downstairs of the ward, Juliana suddenly came to her senses and remembered that today was the day which had agreed to sign a contract with Amantech. Amantech's joining would determine whether Croyer could come back to life. The side effects of chemotherapy were gradually fading. Kelly Moore had been feeling better in the past 2 days. In order to show Croyer's importance to this cooperation, she personally took Alex to a Mantech group to sign the contract today and was not in the hospital at all. So she did not go upstairs but sat on the bench downstairs to bask in the sun. With her eyes closed, the sun shone on her face and her limbs slowly warmed up. Having decided before returning that I would put myself in the right place and be an ordinary sister, why should I be sad? Juliana, she warned herself in her heart. You have no right to be sad. Kelly Moore and Alex's treatment at A Mantech was greatly improved this time. There was a special person to greet them at the door and escort them to the elevator. Because Alfred Williams' meeting was not over yet, the secretary invited them to the lounge and served them exquisite coffee and snacks. There were also 2 blueberry mousse cakes. Kelly Moore couldn't eat too much of this. She tasted it a little and the rest went into Alex's stomach. Alex grumbled while eating. This Mr. William is really difficult to deal with. He has a treacherous mind. In ancient times, he would be a sinister and vicious tyrant. Now he gives us a piece of cake. Maybe he will cut my neck and take the cake out before I finish eating it. Kelly Moore, stop talking, I want to vomit. Not long after, the door of the next meeting room opened, and a group of men in suits walked out. Alfred William, who was walking in the middle, stood out from the crowd. Among the ordinary senior executives, he looked like a refined character from the comic world. Alex, wow, so handsome. He looks like my future husband. Kelly Moore, if you are not afraid of being strangled, I have no objection. Outside the glass door, Alfred William was originally listening to people talking casually. The secretary walked up to him and said something, and he looked into the lounge. His eyes swept across the faces of the 2 of them one by one, paused for a microsecond, and retracted without any reaction. 5 minutes later, they sat face to face with Alfred William in the conference room. Alfred William sat on a chair with his back to the window, his legs crossed, a piece of black suit socks showing under his trouser legs. The signing process was extremely smooth, and he signed without even saying a word. After receiving the freshly baked contract, Kelly Moore said a few polite words such as thanks, appreciation, and pleasant cooperation. Alfred William closed the pen cap and asked casually, why didn't Taylor Juliana come? Alex's mood was as hopeful as a revived grass, and she revealed Juliana's whereabouts without thinking. Our little boss went to deliver ginger soup to her brother.